If you ever wanted proof the left hates Republicans, it came in the form of a CNN headline news decision late yesterday. A man named Stephen Echols saved a baby from being trapped in a hot car. He broke a window to do so. During his interview on CNN headline news, he wore a Trump 2016 t-shirt. The network couldn't do anything about it at the time, but when they rebroadcast the interview, they then blurred out the Donald Trump logo. That's fairly typical for a media intent on casting every Trump supporter as an evil pile of human poop. Meanwhile, the media continue to celebrate 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who donned a different sort of apparel in practice, socks that depict cops as pigs. Really, it's like a picture of a pig with a cop hat on top. But Colin Kaepernick is the bravest, most wonderful, most brilliant racial spokesperson in America. We must all pay homage to his intellect and courage. No wonder college students across America feel triggered by Trump 2016 chalkings but have no problem slandering cops. They're learning it from the older generation in media. That's the point. Those who disagree politically with the left must be castigated. And if an eminently good person openly disagrees with the left simply excises their politics from the equation. So, a Trump supporter who saves a baby from death inside a burning hot car, he becomes just another kind-hearted fellow with unknown politics. They just blur out the t-shirt. If you agree with the left, however, they'll ignore your nastiness. You'll become a civil rights spokesperson and will simply overlook the fact that you're viciously anti-cop. Thus, the left's moral juggernaut chugs ever forward, turning right-wingers into enemies and left-wing radicals into friendly faces. No wonder Republicans are always fighting an uphill battle in the public mind. Members of the public have never actually seen a nice, decent Republican since the media just memory holes them. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. So, lots to get to today here on The Ben Shapiro Show. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about Donald Trump's trip down to Mexico, way down in Mexico, and he also went up to Phoenix and talked about illegal immigration. We'll get to all of that momentarily. First, we have to thank our new sponsors over at Club W. So Club W is this fantastic website. What they do is they have this website, and if you don't know anything about wine, like I don't know anything about wine, and you go to their website, you type in a bunch of taste preferences that seemingly have nothing to do with wine. You tell them what kind of tastes you enjoy, and then they kind of tailor a set of products for you, the kind of wine that you want, and you can buy it online. It's much cheaper than doing it at the local liquor store, and it helps for if you're looking for just the right wine for the special someone, if you're looking for just the right wine for a dinner party and you don't know anything about wine, like for me, I just like wine that tastes like soda pop. This is the place you go if you don't know anything about wine, but you don't want to look like an unsophisticated boor. If you go to Club W right now, then it's clubw.com/Ben. You get $20 off your first order right now. As I've said, they don't have kosher wine, so I haven't tasted the wine, but my entire staff has tasted the wine to the detriment of the company. And they sent the samples here, and people loved the wine a little too much because not a lot of work got done that day. But the wine was apparently really good, from what I'm told by all of the people who tasted the wine. Here are some of the descriptions, according to them. They said the Sauvignon Blanc was oaked, fruit-forward, with hints of pear. There was the Malbec. How do you pronounce it? See, I don't know anything about wine. This is why you need Club W. Malbec. Okay, silky. I can't believe it's not buttery. They said that they liked the Chardonnay the best, and apparently a guy in our office opened the wine bottle with the shoe trick. So if you have someone in your office who has a shoe, then you too can have this wine. So you go to clubw.com/Ben, $20 off your first order. Again, the wine is cheap. It is also apparently really good, and it allows you to pick the best wine for your dinner party. So that's exciting stuff. Okay, so Donald Trump is down in Mexico. He goes down to Mexico yesterday. And there's a lot of lead up to him going down to Mexico, a lot of fuss about what was going to happen. I sort of laid out the possible options. It turned out it was sort of halfway between two of my options that I mentioned yesterday, what actually happened. But we'll start with Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico. He said that Trump would be rejected by everybody in Mexico.
Now you seem very angry again. What happened?
That you do what I did as a citizen, and that you do as a Mexican that is worried about Trump becoming president in the United States. You don't do that as president of this great nation, which is Mexico, representing 130 million people. I'm sure he's going to be rejected by everybody here in Mexico. We cannot accept this going on. And yes, it could be a desperate move. He's just a day ahead or a day in advance of his address to the union, equivalent here in Mexico. And to me, it is a desperate move on both sides.
Okay, it's a desperate move on both sides is what Vicente Fox and his mustache have to say about Donald Trump going down to Mexico. Now, brief kind of time out. Here are the two narratives that have now emerged after Trump's trip to Mexico and his immigration speech. And over the course of the program, we'll determine which one of these narratives is correct, or if they're both correct. Narrative number one is the pro-Trump narrative. So the pro-Trump narrative says yesterday was the biggest success of the Trump campaign. It was his best hour. It was the best thing that he's done in the campaign so far. He went down to Mexico. He looked staid. He looked sober. He didn't go down and vomit on somebody, so it's a big success. And therefore, big win for him. He shakes the hand of the president of Mexico. The president of Mexico doesn't slam him. And then he goes to Phoenix and he gives a very strong immigration speech, which is very heavy on policy. He does walk back a little bit, kind of. He kind of vaguely walks back the idea that he's going to deport everybody, but in such a way that it sounds like he might still deport everybody. So big win for Donald Trump. That's the narrative from the Trump camp. The narrative from the mainstream media is Trump goes down. He appears sober. But it turns out that he fibs, right? He goes down there and he says that we didn't talk, Nieto, the president of Mexico, Peña Nieto, we didn't talk about who was going to pay for the magical Trump wall. We never had that conversation. And Peña Nieto comes back a few hours later and he says, no, we actually did have that conversation. I told him I wasn't paying for the wall, so Trump lied. And then Trump goes to Phoenix and he's supposed to be giving this kind of moderating, softening pitch. And instead he gives a raw meat, red meat speech to his base of supporters who are very enthusiastic, and he doesn't soften anything at all, so big loss. The media says big loss, Trump's people say big win. So now we're going to talk about what actually happened. I think there's some truth on both sides here, actually. So Trump goes down to Mexico, and he's speaking with Enrique Peña Nieto, who is the president of Mexico.
Prosperity and happiness in both of our countries will increase if we work together on the following 5 shared goals. Number 1, ending illegal immigration, not just between our two countries, but including the illegal immigration and migration from Central and South Americans and from other regions that impact security and finances. Number 2, having a secure border is a sovereign right and mutually beneficial. We recognize and respect the right of either country to build a physical barrier or wall on any of its borders to stop the illegal movement of people, drugs, and weapons. Number 3, dismantling drug cartels and ending the movement of illegal drugs, weapons, and funds across our border. Improving NAFTA, number 4. NAFTA is a 22-year-old agreement that must be updated to reflect the realities of today. There are many improvements that could be made that would make both Mexico and the United States stronger and keep industry in our hemisphere. Number 5, keep manufacturing wealth in our hemisphere.
We can stop it there. So bottom line is that he goes there and he speaks out all of his priorities. We're going to stop illegal immigration. We're going to build a wall. So here's what this was and here's what this wasn't. It was Trump appearing sober, which was important because the rip on him from Hillary Clinton and the Democrats is that he's a complete nutcase. He was going to go down there and he was going to start launching nuclear weapons. He was going to walk in with a mariachi band and a taco bowl, present it to Peña Nieto, and then annex the country, right? That's the way that Hillary Clinton was basically speaking about how Donald Trump was going to act. He didn't do that. He appeared sober. He appeared staid. Honestly, it looks like he took a couple of Valium, and that wasn't a bad look for him. Right? What this does demonstrate, by the way, is that Donald Trump's standard, the standard to which we hold Donald Trump, and I think this is actually smart politically for him, is much lower than it would be for a normal politician. He doesn't have to be interesting. He doesn't have to say anything exciting. He can go down there, give a normal speech, and we treat him like we treated 2-year-olds who just peed in the potty for the first time. Right? We just do a big round of applause. It's an amazing showing. I thought the most amusing aspect of this was Laura Ingraham coming out after this and saying, "Isn't it great that we just had such a successful meeting with our chief trading partner?" I thought you hated NAFTA, Laura. I thought that was your whole deal. But in any case, Trump gives this statement. He appears sober and he appears not crazy, and that's the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing here is he has to look not crazy on the international stage. It's a big win. The media acknowledged that it's a big win. And then Trump is asked about the wall. Did you speak about whether someone would pay for the wall?
Well, I'll start. I mean, nothing like an easy question like that. We did discuss the wall. We didn't discuss payment of the wall. That'll be for a later date. This was a very preliminary meeting. I think it was an excellent meeting. And I think we're very well on our way. A lot of the things I said are very strong, but we have to be strong. We have to say what's happening. There is crime, as you know.
So he goes along these lines. So great. I mean, he says we didn't discuss it, and that's fine. A lot of people who are kind of cynically trying to bash Trump, they say, well, why didn't he discuss it? That's him being weak. You can't have it both ways. Either you want him to pivot or you don't want him to pivot. If you want him to pivot, then he can't discuss it. If you don't want him to pivot, then you wish that he had mentioned it. But then you have to be ideologically consistent and condemn his new pivot altogether. Charles Krauthammer, who's not a Trump fan. I mean, obviously, I'm not a Trump fan either. Pretty much everybody, Bill Kristol, Charles Krauthammer, Jonah Goldberg, me, like all the people who you would think of as sort of the people who don't love Trump, to say the least, they said that Trump helped himself with this particular jaunt to Mexico.
And it put Trump on the international stage. Do you think it'll help him?
Yes. He took a risk and he pulled it off. Look, the big negative about Trump, the thing that the Clinton campaign plays on, is the fact that it's hard to imagine him as president. Being presidential is the thing he's been trying to do. His staff has been trying to get for him for the last 6 months. Now here he is standing on the world stage with the world leader. This is a big step. He not only held his own, I think in some ways, he sort of dominated. The Mexican president was rather defensive, asking for respect. Trump, I thought, spoke well. And then if you noticed at the very end when they took questions, it was Trump who took charge. He's sitting in the palace of the president of Mexico. This never happens. Normally, it's the host who picks the journalist. Trump took charge naturally, walked off the stage as the dominant guy. He pulled it off. I think he really helped himself.
Okay, and I agree. I thought that he helped himself yesterday. I wrote a piece about it right afterward. Hours later, the Mexican government comes out and they say Trump lied. When he said we didn't talk about payment for the wall, that's not true. Here's a Mexican spokesperson saying, yeah, we mentioned the wall. So according to Reuters, quote, Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto on Wednesday told Donald Trump Mexico would not pay for the Republican presidential candidate's proposed wall along the border. According to Eduardo Sanchez, presidential spokesman, he said what the president said is that Mexico, as has been said on several occasions, will not pay for that wall. So it sounds like Trump fibbed. Now, again, I don't think that hurts Trump too badly because he said right in front of Peña Nieto that we didn't talk about it, and Peña Nieto let it go. So it looked like a little bit of sour grapes. It looked like kind of Seinfeld jerk storing, like he's coming about late to the party and trying to buy it back. But it does cast a slight gloss on a little bit of a scar on what was a pretty blemish-free appearance by Donald Trump. Then Donald Trump goes to Phoenix. And Donald Trump gives this speech in Phoenix. Now, to lead off, I think it's important to mention a couple of things. One, the speech was not at a policy conference. It was not a policy center. I think this was a mistake. If you're going to give a big pivot policy speech, you don't do it to a rah-rah cheering crowd of people who are also cheering when you said you wanted to deport 11 million people. If you're going to actually pivot on that issue, you don't do it in front of the red meat base. You actually do it at like Heritage Foundation so that the crowd isn't cheering all of the lines that are the most militant and going silent at all the lines that are the most pivot friendly. That's if you're trying to pivot, which Trump, I think, was trying to do. That's number one. Number two, the theatrics here. There's one element of theatricality that I thought was good, but there are other elements that were pretty incredible. You had Rudy Giuliani and Jeff Sessions walking on stage at this event wearing hats that said, "Make Mexico Great Again also." I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, other than it seems like a slap at Mexico, right? I don't know, like, are we going to invade? Are we going to take it over? Is it going to be like the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli? I mean, are we going to go Woodrow Wilson style in there? It's bizarre. But Trump gives this speech. So here's my initial take. I read the speech last night. I didn't watch the speech. I read it. And when I read the speech, I thought this is a very well-stated policy position for Republicans on immigration. I thought it's a really well-stated speech. I thought that it mirrored Ted Cruz's position on immigration in the primaries, which is the position I supported. I thought that this was a very, very strong speech. And that was sort of widely accepted on the conservative right. We looked at the speech. We said, on policy, this is really good. There were some holes on it when it got to deportation, but it's okay to leave that vague. You don't have to talk about what you're going to do 10 years from now when we finally secured the border. You can kind of say, okay, we'll leave that to 10 years from now when we finally secured the border. So let's go through Trump's speech. There was a distinction, as I say. One of the problems for Trump is that Trump is a showman. Because Trump is a showman, he tends to perform to the live audience in front of him. Now, as somebody who's done this before, right, I give speeches all the time, it's hard not to respond to the audience right in front of you as opposed to the audience that's outside the camera coming through your TV screen. Trump should know this because he's been on TV so much, but he tends to respond to the people in the room like a musician would. If you're a musician and you're playing a concert, I'm a violinist. If you're a musician, you're playing a concert and people are clanking their way through dinner, then you're going to start getting angry. You might play faster. You might play louder to try and get their attention. Trump responds to the crowd. And because he responds to the crowd here, he ends up sounding more extreme than the text of the speech makes it out to be. And that allows the left to create their own narrative of what Trump was actually doing here. What he was trying to do was pivot while still maintaining a strong immigration position. I think the text of the speech did that. I also see why the left would seize on the sort of militance of Trump's tone, as well as the vagary of his language to suggest that he wasn't really pivoting at all. So we'll go through that in just a second. But first, I want to mention our friends at U.S. Tax Shield. So, look, the federal government at this point is going to come after everybody for as much money as they can since we're basically bankrupt. So that means that you should really have your taxes in order. If you're somebody who has not had their taxes in order, if you're somebody who actually has run into trouble with the IRS, you need to talk to my friends over at U.S. Tax Shield. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Shouldn't be embarrassing that you have tax problems with the IRS. Lots and lots of people do. But you need to solve it right now rather than sitting on it and waiting and hoping that it goes away. You don't want to play footsie with the IRS. They don't play games. It's the one area of the government that is actually efficient at its job because their job is to take your money. They specialize in helping people who have problems with the IRS, people with personal tax liabilities and business payroll taxes, fees and penalties. So you call them for a free consultation at 800-542-2226, 800-542-2226, or you can visit them online at ustaxshield.com/Ben. That's ustaxshield.com/Ben. Make sure it's, the /Ben reminds them that we sent you. And that's great for us, great for you. You get a good product, and they continue to advertise with us and pay for all of the people who haven't paid their taxes in this room. When you call for your free consultation, they'll have a tax consultant on the phone, and they'll actually call the IRS hotline with you and start the process, and they'll walk you through the process, and they'll give you a baseline estimate, a guaranteed quote that never increases at any time. They have a fresh start program helping you come clean with the IRS and negotiate a solution. Again, their number at U.S. Tax Shield is 800-542-2226, ustaxshield.com/Ben. Okay, well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our Facebook Live and YouTube. If you want to hear my full analysis of Donald Trump's speech, plus we got the mailbag coming up, plus we have so many things I like and so many things I hate. It's a jam-packed show, most jam-packed hour in podcast and in media. DailyWire.com is where you subscribe so you can see everything, and so you can email us for the mailbag, which we're doing today. DailyWire.com, $8 a month. It seems like a cheap price to pay for the privilege of spending time with me, gang. Come on. I mean, I make my wife pay more than that. So DailyWire.com if you want to become a subscriber. If you just want to listen later, you can go to iTunes or SoundCloud. We are the #1 conservative podcast in America.